In the vibrant world of daytime television, where emotions often run high and unexpected moments capture the audience's imagination, a recent episode of The Kelly Clarkson Show took an unforeseen turn that has everyone talking. Picture this: the studio is buzzing with anticipation, the lights are bright, and the crowd is ready for another heartwarming segment filled with laughter and music. Kelly Clarkson, the ever-charismatic host, welcomes her guest, the iconic Gwen Stefani, to the stage. The two have a storied history, having shared the spotlight as coaches on The Voice, where their playful rivalry and genuine friendship blossomed. Fans expected a nostalgic chat about their time on the show, perhaps some light-hearted banter about Blake Shelton, Gwen's husband and Kelly's longtime friend. But what unfolded was far from the expected script. As the interview began, the chemistry between the two seemed warm, with Kelly's infectious energy complementing Gwen's cool, laid-back vibe. They reminisced about their days on The Voice, laughing about the competitive spirit that fueled their coaching stints. Kelly, known for her candid humor, teased Gwen about her latest album, Bouquet, and its shift toward country influences, a nod to her life with Blake. Gwen responded with her signature charm, sharing how her time in Oklahoma inspired her new sound. The audience was hooked, hanging on every word, as the conversation flowed effortlessly out, or so it seemed. But beneath the surface, a subtle tension was brewing, one that would soon erupt into a moment that left the audience stunned. It started with an innocent question from Kelly about Gwen's creative process during the pandemic, a time when both artists faced personal and professional challenges. Gwen's response was measured, but there was a hint of defensiveness in her tone, as if the question touched a nerve. Kelly, perhaps unaware of the shift, pressed on, asking about Gwen's feelings of jealousy toward her productivity during that time, referencing a recent interview where Gwen admitted to being inspired by Kelly's relentless creativity. The audience sensed a change in the air, and the once lively studio grew quiet, as if everyone knew something big was about to happen. The second act of this dramatic encounter unfolded as Kelly, ever the empathetic host, tried to steer the conversation toward a lighter note. She shared her own struggles with balancing motherhood, her career, and her divorce from Brandon Blackstock, hoping to connect with Gwen on a personal level. Gwen, who has been open about her own divorce from Gavin Rossdale, nodded along, but her expression tightened. The mention of personal struggles seemed to hit a sore spot, and Gwen's responses grew shorter, her smile less frequent. Kelly, perhaps sensing the discomfort, shifted gears, asking Gwen about her upcoming projects and her return to No Doubt for a Coachella performance. But the question seemed to catch Gwen off guard. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the side, before offering a vague answer about being excited but overwhelmed. The audience, still recovering from the earlier tension, leaned in, sensing that the conversation was teetering on the edge of something explosive. Kelly, known for her ability to keep things light, tried to inject humor, joking about how Gwen must be jealous of her ability to juggle so many projects. It was meant as a playful jab, a nod to their friendly rivalry on The Voice, but it landed poorly. Gwen's face stiffened, and she let out a sharp laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Jealous, that's a strong word, Kelly," she said, her tone clipped. The audience gasped softly, and Kelly's smile faltered for a moment. Undeterred, Kelly pushed forward, asking Gwen to elaborate on how she found inspiration during tough times. Gwen's response was unexpectedly candid as she admitted that seeing Kelly thrive during the pandemic made her feel inadequate at times, a raw admission that stunned the crowd. The vulnerability was palpable, but it also set the stage for what would become a heated clash. Kelly, trying to keep the show moving, didn't pick up on Gwen's discomfort and instead doubled down, saying, "Come on, you're Gwen Stefani, you've got nothing to feel inadequate about." The comment, meant as a compliment, seemed to ignite something in Gwen, and the atmosphere in the studio shifted dramatically. By the third segment, the tension was undeniable. Gwen, visibly agitated, leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed. The audience could feel the shift, and even Kelly, usually so adept at reading the room, seemed caught off guard. She tried to pivot, asking Gwen about her fashion choices, a topic that usually brought out Gwen's playful side, but Gwen wasn't having it. She responded with a curt, I just wear what feels right," before falling silent. The silence was deafening, and the audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Kelly, sensing the need to salvage the moment, brought up a throwback photo from Gwen's 2016 Vanity Fair Oscars party appearance with Blake, hoping to spark a warm memory. But the mention of Blake seemed to be the final straw. Gwen's eyes narrowed, and she interrupted Kelly mid-sentence. "You know, Kelly, not everything is about Blake or The Voice," she snapped. The audience gasped audibly, and Kelly's face froze in shock. For a moment, the studio was silent, save for the faint hum of the stage lights. Gwen's words hung in the air, sharp and cutting, and it was clear that something deeper was at play. Kelly, ever the professional, tried to laugh it off, saying, "Okay, girl, let's talk about you then." But the damage was done. Gwen's frustration was palpable, and she began to speak, her voice rising with each word. She talked about how tired she was of being defined by her relationship with Blake or her time on The Voice, and how questions about her personal life often overshadowed her work as an artist. The audience was riveted, torn between discomfort and fascination, as Gwen laid bare her feelings. Kelly, clearly unprepared for this outburst, tried to interject, but Gwen wasn't finished. She accused Kelly of pushing buttons and not listening, a charge that left Kelly visibly stung. The clash was now in full swing, and the studio was electric with tension. As the fourth segment began, the atmosphere in the studio was charged with unease. Gwen's outburst had shifted the dynamic, and Kelly, still reeling, tried to regain control of the interview. She apologized, her voice soft but sincere, saying, "Gwen, I'm so sorry if I made you feel like I wasn't hearing you. That's not my intention." But Gwen, still visibly upset, wasn't ready to let it go. She leaned forward, her hands gesturing animatedly, and launched into a passionate monologue about the pressures of being in the public eye. She spoke about how the media, and sometimes even well-meaning friends like Kelly, reduced her to headlines about her relationships or her rivalry with other artists. "I'm more than just Blake's wife or your co-star on The Voice," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The audience was silent, hanging on her every word, as Gwen poured out her frustrations. She talked about the challenges of balancing her career with motherhood, her desire to be taken seriously as an artist, and the constant comparisons to other women in the industry. Kelly listened intently, her usual bubbly demeanor replaced by a quiet intensity. For a moment, it seemed like the two might find common ground, as Kelly nodded in understanding, her own experiences with divorce and public scrutiny mirroring Gwen's. But just as the tension seemed to ease, Gwen made a pointed remark, "Sometimes it feels like you're trying to make the show about you, Kelly." The accusation hit like a thunderbolt, and the audience gasped again. Kelly's eyes widened, and for a split second, she looked genuinely hurt. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. The studio was a powder keg, and everyone knew that the next few moments would define the rest of the interview. Gwen, perhaps realizing the weight of her words, softened slightly, but the damage was done. The clash had escalated beyond a simple misunderstanding, and the audience was left wondering if the two could salvage their friendship. The fifth segment saw Kelly attempting to steer the conversation back to safer territory, but the rift between her and Gwen was now undeniable. She asked Gwen about her No Doubt reunion and the creative process behind her new album, hoping to refocus on Gwen's artistry. But Gwen's responses remained guarded, her earlier openness replaced by a cautious tone. She spoke briefly about the joy of reuniting with her bandmates and the nostalgia of performing at Coachella, but her answers lacked the enthusiasm the audience expected. Kelly, still shaken from Gwen's earlier accusation, seemed to struggle with her usual effortless charm. Her questions felt forced, and the chemistry that had once defined their interactions was noticeably absent. The audience, still reeling from the heated exchange, was divided as some sympathized with Gwen's frustration, while others felt she had crossed a line by calling out Kelly on her own show. Social media was already buzzing with reactions, with fans taking sides and speculating about what had sparked the clash. Some pointed to Gwen's recent comments about feeling jealous of Kelly's productivity, while others wondered if there was deeper, unspoken tension between the two. Kelly, ever the professional, tried to inject humor, making a self-deprecating joke about her own tendency to talk too much. But Gwen didn't laugh. Instead, she leaned back, her arms crossed again, and said, "Maybe it's time we talk about something real." The comment was cryptic, but it sent a ripple through the studio. Kelly's smile wavered, and she quickly cut to a commercial break, promising the audience they'd be right back. The tension was palpable, and the crew scrambled to regroup during the break. Off-camera, whispers circulated about whether Gwen would stay for the rest of the show or if the interview was headed for an abrupt end. The stage was set for a dramatic turning point, and everyone was on edge, waiting to see what would happen next. When the show returned from the commercial break, the audience was on the edge of their seats, anticipating the next move in this unexpected drama. Kelly, with her trademark resilience, came back with renewed energy. Determined to salvage the interview, she addressed the audience directly, acknowledging the realness of the moment and thanking Gwen for her honesty. "This is what makes this show special," she said, her voice steady but warm. "We get to have real conversations, even when they're tough." The audience applauded, but Gwen's expression remained unreadable. Kelly then took a bold step, asking Gwen to share something personal that she hadn't talked about publicly before. It was a risky move, given the earlier tension, but Kelly seemed determined to show that she was listening. Gwen hesitated, her eyes scanning the audience, before opening up about the challenges of blending her family with Blake's and navigating the public's fascination with their relationship. She spoke candidly about the pressure to maintain a perfect image and how it sometimes made her feel like she was losing herself. The audience was captivated, and for a moment, it seemed like the two might find a way to reconnect. Kelly listened intently, offering nods of encouragement and sharing her own experiences as a mother and public figure. But just as the conversation seemed to be finding its footing, Gwen's tone shifted again. She accused Kelly of steering the narrative to make the show more dramatic, a comment that stung deeply. Kelly's face flushed, and she responded with uncharacteristic sharpness, saying, "Gwen, I'm just trying to have a conversation here." The audience held its breath, sensing that the clash was far from over. Gwen's frustration seemed to stem from a deeper place, perhaps years of being scrutinized and compared, and Kelly, despite her best efforts, was struggling to bridge the gap. The interview was now a tightrope walk, with both women teetering on the edge of reconciliation or further conflict. The seventh segment was the breaking point. Gwen, visibly emotional, stood up from her chair, her hands trembling. "I need a minute," she said, her voice cracking. The audience gasped as she walked off the stage, leaving Kelly alone under the bright studio lights. Kelly, clearly shaken, tried to maintain her composure, turning to the audience with a forced smile. "Well, that's live TV, folks," she said, her voice wavering. She quickly pivoted to a pre-planned segment, introducing a musical performance to fill the time, but the energy in the studio was chaotic. Backstage, rumors swirled about what had prompted Gwen's dramatic exit. Some speculated that the personal nature of the questions had pushed her too far, while others believed the clash was rooted in their competitive history on The Voice. Social media exploded with reactions, with hashtags like #GwenWalksOff and #KellyGwenClash trending within minutes. Fans debated whether Gwen's reaction was justified or if Kelly had been unfairly targeted. Meanwhile, Kelly's team worked to manage the fallout, with producers scrambling to decide how to address the incident. When the show resumed, Gwen's abrupt departure left a void, and the audience was left wondering if she would return to finish the interview or if the clash had irreparably damaged their friendship. Kelly, ever the professional, continued the show, but her usual sparkle was dimmed. She made a brief comment about respecting Gwen's need for space, but her eyes betrayed her hurt. The incident was a stark reminder of the pressures of live television, where raw emotions can spill over in unexpected ways. As the show neared its end, the question on everyone's mind was whether Gwen and Kelly could mend their bond or if this clash would mark the end of their public camaraderie. In the final segment, the show wrapped up without Gwen's return, leaving a bittersweet taste in the air. Kelly addressed the audience one last time, her voice steady but emotional. She thanked Gwen for coming on the show and expressed hope that they could continue their conversation another time. "Sometimes real talk gets messy, but that's what makes us human," she said, earning a round of applause from the audience. Behind the scenes, reports suggested that Gwen had left the studio entirely, opting not to return for the remainder of the taping. The incident sparked a flurry of speculation about the state of their friendship and whether there was more to the story than what aired. Some sources close to the show claimed that Gwen had been feeling overwhelmed by recent media scrutiny, while others pointed to the competitive dynamic between the two on The Voice as a lingering source of tension. Fans took to social media to dissect every moment of the interview, with some praising Gwen for her honesty and others defending Kelly's hosting style. The clash, though uncomfortable, highlighted the complexities of their relationship with two women navigating fame, motherhood, and personal growth under the public's watchful eye. As the dust settled, both Kelly and Gwen remained silent on the incident, leaving fans to wonder if they would address it publicly. The Kelly Clarkson Show continued its season, with Kelly bouncing back with her signature warmth, but the memory of Gwen's walk-off lingered. For now, the full story remains untold, but one thing is clear: this heated clash was a moment of raw, unfiltered emotion that reminded everyone of the humanity behind the celebrity. The question remains: will Gwen and Kelly find a way to heal, or will this moment define their relationship moving forward?